This week, there is going to be tons going on with the NASCAR world, and one thing that cannot be overlooked is that it is the end of an era, not only for Kyle Busch at Joe Gibbs Racing, but for M&M's in NASCAR. M&M's has been a sponsor that is synonymous with NASCAR and one that really brings a lot of younger fans in due to the bright colors and being the candy car. But unfortunately, after the events of the race at Phoenix, there will not be any more M&M's cars in NASCAR for the foreseeable future. So today, we're going to go back and look at the best of the best. What M&M's moments in NASCAR defined their stay. Now, I will say, starting out, we're going to look at ones with just M&M's cars. Not Skittles, Snickers, combos, anything like that. While they were subsidiaries of M&M's and Mars, they were not the M&M's car and therefore do not count. So if you don't see events like, say, the 2013 Auto Club race, that's why. Without further ado, let's get right into it. At number 10, we have David Gilliland winning the pole for the 2007 Daytona 500. David Gilliland's time at Robert Yates Racing in the Candy car was one that was pretty mediocre at best. From the middle of the 2006 season when he entered the car until M&M's left the team at the end of 2007, Gilliland was nothing more than a mid-pack driver who you would see every now and then, but Robert Yates Racing was always good with the super speedway tracks. So, one thing that they were really good at as well with that was qualifying. And in 2007, Gilliland gave Robert Yates Racing its last great super speedway moment, winning the pole for the Daytona 500. This was the high point of the season, as this was the point that Yates was starting to completely fall off and go from even a mediocre team to just a flat-out bad one. Gilliland, though, managed to keep his car clean to the end of the race, where he was somewhat caught up in the last lap wreck, but still finished 8th after leading numerous laps. And number 9 is Kyle Busch's 2015 win at Sonoma. In 2015, Kyle Busch started off the season in about the worst way possible, getting hurt in the Xfinity race the day before the Daytona 500. Due to this injury, he had to miss the first 11 races of the 2015 season and go through an intensive recovery process for months that many thought Busch would never fully recover from. Granted a waiver by NASCAR on his return that he could make the playoffs if he got a win and got into the top 30 in points, Busch was on a mission. And only 5 races into his return, the first part was checked off. At Sonoma, Busch managed to be the fastest guy for pretty much the entire day, managed to put all that speed to use, and would win the race there, starting a streak that would get him to the top 30 in points and ultimately get him one of the best seasons possible to remember. At number 8 is what at the moment is M&M's last win in NASCAR in 2022 at the Bristol Dirt Race. Early in 2022, when only rumblings of Kyle Busch and Joe Gibbs were splitting up or possibly, this was seemingly just another win for Kyle Busch. A crazy one at that, but not one that was all that special. Busch started the season really well and was one of the championship contenders early that people had circled, but he had 0 wins in this time. Battling the on and off Easter rain, the number 18 stayed in the fight, and with the laps closing down, the 8 and the 14 were just ahead of him, looking to run away with the win. But Chase Briscoe ran way too deep into the corner, took out Tyler Reddick, the 2 spun, and Kyle Busch in 3rd place managed to pounce on both of them, just barely beating the 8 across the line. Now this is one, if not the most, ironic wins of Kyle Busch's career. At number 7, we go from what was Kyle Busch's last win at Joe Gibbs Racing, more than likely, to his first win with M&M's, and that is the 2008 Aaron's 499 at Talladega Superspeedway. Entering 2008, Kyle Busch of the 18 car was an unknown commodity, and many thought because of how bad the 18 had been, especially from 2005 to 2007, that Busch wasn't really going to be all that good. He was stepping down, after all, from a Hendrick Motorsports ride at a team that had 18 of the 36 points races won the year before. But he turned around and he won Atlanta. And then Busch being fast all year came to be fast with the other Toyotas at the super speedways like Talladega. And like I said, the Toyotas were fast all day, but slowly but surely they started getting picked off. But the 18 was the lucky one to survive this carnage. With a hell of a save, being hit by Jamie McMurray in the closing laps, gaining the lead and holding off the field, Busch managed to have the win when the big one ended the race prematurely. To this day, this is one of the best Kyle Busch wins in general, and this is his only win at Talladega Superspeedway. Number 6 is the most dominant race in the history of M&M's sponsorship that they ended up winning, and it was Kyle Busch's 2018 Coca-Cola 600 win. To put this in perspective, Busch led 377 of the 400 laps. That is 566 miles and over 94% of the race. Now, many Kyle Busch fans will remember this too because Charlotte was the last track on the 2018 schedule and in NASCAR at the time that he hadn't won at. So he had won at the time at every track. But it's also a bit overshadowed though by the 2016 domination in the same race by Martin Truex Jr. Kyle Busch actually was really emotional in Victory Lane, comparing it to being just under his championship in 2015. And this was also in the red, white, and blue scheme, with NASCAR salutes having different fallen soldiers on the car at the time. So this race in a lot of ways was big for Busch personally, and it was big for M&M's as it was the only time they won NASCAR's longest race. Entering the top 5 is the Bristol Night Race, and this would be the first Bristol Night Race won by Kyle Busch. While he had wins at Bristol in the past, including earlier in 09 and the first COT race in 07, Busch was yet to win the Bristol Night Race, and in 2008, he had finished second after an intense battle with Carl Edwards that saw him get absolutely humiliated after the race being spun out by the 99. In 2009, he would have to battle another great, this time Mark Martin. While not leading until late, he had improved as the night had continued, and on the final 4-lap restart, he and Martin had a great battle, with neither really making any contact, and if there was any, it was accidental and very minimal. Busch snuck by the guy who had dominated all night long to get the win, and started out a very good tradition for himself at the Bristol Motor Speedway in the night race. Regardless, M&M's in Victory Lane in the night race was a really big deal. At number 4, we have the first race for M&M's being completely on the car. This is the 1999 Daytona 500. For years, Skittles sponsored the 36 car with drivers like Derek Cope and Ernie Irvan with MB2 Motorsports. And in 1999, the candy machine would get a rebrand from Skittles to the M&M's car that we know of today. Starting 31st on the grid, Irvan managed to keep his car on the lead lap through 95 laps, which is a big deal because this race had very, very few cautions. And when they did have a caution, like on lap 136, it was a big one that they'd have to avoid with the M&M's Pontiac. And he did that, kept the car clean, kept the car on the lead lap, and came home to a 14th place run, again on the lead lap. That can't be understated. While modest in the beginning, it started one of the most famous runs and traditions for a sponsor in NASCAR history. With that, we now enter the podium. And with the bronze comes the first win in the 2004 Texas race. While MB2 was the start of the M&M's journey, Yates was the step up. In 2003, the rebranded 38 team brought on the young, talented upstart Elliott Sadler. While Sadler didn't have immediate success, there was plenty of potential to see. And in 2004, the Yates team looked ready to step up and be a championship contender again. And at Texas, it would all come to a head. While rookie Casey Kane seemed to have the win in hand with 34 to go, he restarted 7th, while Sadler restarted 2nd, only behind Jeff Gordon. Sadler got by Gordon, though, in 5 laps due to the 24 having some issues, and Kane really couldn't get back to the top 2 positions until 15 laps after the restart, giving Sadler plenty of time to jump out to a lead. Kane spent the last 20 laps running down the 38's big lead, and with 4 to go, he made it to Sadler's bumper. But it is one thing to catch him and another to pass him. With a 38 running low for the last couple laps and the 9 running a bit higher, coming out of 4 on the last lap, Sadler had to run right behind the lap car of Johnny Sauter, getting dirty air all over his car. He had to lift, and Casey King got beside him, only for the M&M's machine to barely sneak by and get the win by 28 hundredths of a second, in front of 216,000 people. With the silver comes Kyle Busch's 2019 championship. By the 2010s, the Candyman was far and away the best driver in NASCAR, and by the end of the decade, he was also the winningest. In 2019, Busch started strong with 4 wins in the first 14 races, and he looked like he was a clear-cut guy to win the championship. But he fell off and wouldn't win another race until the end of the playoffs. Even so, with this, he managed to qualify for the Final Four, and he was pretty much the only one at Homestead who really didn't try to shoot themselves in the foot in some way. Because of his competition not running so hot when it came to strategy or other things that they would do, and also the fact that he had the best car out there, Kyle Busch would run home, leading 120 of 267 laps en route to his second Cup Series title. Taking it home at number 1 is the 2015 championship. Fittingly, the number 1 pick is Kyle Busch's most controversial career moment as well. With Busch missing the first 11 races and then being able to qualify for the chase at the time, it was controversial enough. Even more controversial was him advancing into the Final Four and going against stiff competition like Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, and of course, the retiring Jeff Gordon. Late in the race, Brad Keselowski was on his way to a victory, and it looked like Busch was well on his way to a championship with a 9-second lead over the driver of the 4 Chevrolet. But with the caution coming out, pit stops looked to decide the way that the championship would go. With a 12-second stop, Busch had a 2-spot buffer over the 4. And he followed this up with a great restart where he ran away with the win and the title over the 4 and Co. With this, M&M's had their car in championship victory lane, and Kyle Busch, while controversially, was finally a NASCAR Cup Series champion. Something that many, even a couple years before, couldn't imagine. And with that, I've given you my top 10 picks. Now, I want to pass it on to you and ask, what were your favorite M&M's moments in NASCAR? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video and share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more great NASCAR content through championship weekend, the off-season, and onward. And all my channel members, thank you so much for your continuous support. So until next time, have a good one.